Ray did everything the responsible way. He saved hard for 40 years, filled up his 401k, rolled it into an IRA, and then he barely touched it. He was proud of that. The money just sat there and grew. What nobody told Ray was that the account had a clock inside it, and he was not the one who got to start it. The IRS did. The year he turned 73, the government decided how much he had to pull out, whether he needed the money or not, and it was taxable. Ray missed the first deadline because he was still working and figured that meant he could wait. It did not. And the penalty he paid was not small. Here's the hard truth. The mistakes people make with required minimum distribution rules almost never come from spending too much. They come from good, careful savers who did the right thing for decades and then handed the IRS money they never had to give. So today, let's count down the 5 biggest RMD mistakes, in plain English, using the 2026 rules, down to the one that quietly costs the most. Number 1 is the newest, and almost nobody sees it coming. Let's start the countdown. Mistake number 5, getting the starting line wrong. And you can hardly blame people, because the government moved it 3 times. It used to be 70.5, then 72. Now, under the current rules, if you were born between 1951 and 1959, your required minimum distributions start at 73. If you were born in 1960 or later, they start at 75. So the first job is simply knowing your own number. But here's the trap inside the trap. For that very first year, the IRS lets you delay until April 1st of the following year. That sounds like a gift. It is usually a mistake. Because if you push the first one into the next year, you still owe that next year's distribution by its December deadline. So 2 full withdrawals land in the same tax year. 2 stacked distributions can push you into a higher bracket, make more of your Social Security taxable, and raise your Medicare surcharge 2 years later. The delay felt free. It was not. For most people, taking that first distribution on time is the calmer path. Mistake number 4, botching the accounts math. This one sounds technical, but it is really about one honest misunderstanding, and it costs people a penalty every year. Here is the rule. With several traditional IRAs, you figure the amount for each, but you can take the whole total from just one. Convenient. So people assume that works for every retirement account they own. It does not. Your old workplace plans, your 401k accounts, your 457 plans, each one has to be satisfied on its own. You cannot cover a 401k by pulling extra from an IRA, and you cannot cover one 401k with another. Miss one, and it counts as unmet. And here's the other confusion. People hear there's a still working exception and assume it protects everything. It does not. If you're still employed and don't own more than 5% of the company, you can delay distributions from that current employer's plan. But your IRAs? No exception. That clock starts at your age no matter how hard you're still working. Ray learned that the expensive way. Mistake number 3, leaving free money on the table. By ignoring the single best move the tax code hands a charitable retiree. It's called a qualified charitable distribution, a QCD. Once you're 70.5, you can send money straight from your IRA to a charity you support. Here's why that is close to magic. That gift counts toward your required distribution, and it is excluded from your income entirely.
The money never lands on your tax return, so it can't push up the tax on your Social Security, and it can't raise your Medicare surcharge. In 2026, you can move up to $108,000 this way. For anyone who gives to their church, their food bank, their alma mater, writing the check from the IRA instead of the bank account is the smarter order.
And remember the accounts the clock never starts on. Roth IRAs have no required distributions in your lifetime. And since 2024, neither do Roth 401k accounts.
Money in a Roth just keeps growing, untouched for as long as you live.
Mistake number 2, eating the penalty. This is the number that names this whole video. Required minimum distribution rules. To one neighbor he genuinely wants to protect.
If you were supposed to take a distribution and you didn't, the IRS charges an excise tax of 25% of what you missed.
A quarter of it gone, on top of the regular tax you'll still owe when you finally take it out. The old penalty was 50%, so 25 is an improvement, but it's still a brutal price for a paperwork slip. Here's the part almost nobody knows, and it can save you thousands.
That 25% drops to 10% if you fix the shortfall within the correction window, by the end of the second year after you missed it.
And it can go further. If the miss was an honest mistake and you've taken steps to fix it,
you can file Form 5329, explain what happened, and request a waiver. The IRS grants those routinely for reasonable error.
So the real mistake here isn't the missed distribution. It's paying the full penalty when you never knew there were 2 exits.
Mistake number 1, the one that is newest, least understood, and hands the IRS the most: the inherited IRA.
When you leave an IRA to your children, most of them can no longer stretch it out over their lifetime.
Under the current rules, a non-spouse who inherits has to empty the whole account within 10 years.
That alone bunches a lifetime of taxes into a single decade. But it gets sharper. The IRS finalized the rules. If the person who died had already started their own required distributions, the person who inherits must also take a withdrawal every single year, years 1 through 9, and still empty it by year 10. For a while, the IRS waived the penalty on those annual withdrawals. That grace period is over. Starting in 2025, they are enforced.
Now, picture who usually inherits. A son or daughter in their 50s, in their highest earning years,
Suddenly forced to pile taxable withdrawals on top of a peak salary at the worst tax rate of their life.
There are people this rule doesn't hit. A surviving spouse, a minor child, someone disabled or chronically ill, or a beneficiary not more than 10 years younger. But for the ordinary adult child, this is the trap. And the fix is not complicated. It's a conversation before it's inherited. About Roth conversions and spreading withdrawals so the tax never bunches. Silence is what hands the IRS more than anyone ever owed.
So let's put the map back together. The through line is simple. A traditional IRA is not really all yours.
There's a partner in it named the IRS, and starting at 73, they collect. The retirees who keep the most are the ones who act before the deadline instead of after. They take that first distribution on time. They give from the IRA when they're charitable. They move money into Roth accounts in the quiet years before 73, when they can control the tax. And they talk to their kids about the 10-year rule, long before anyone needs to.
You may remember from our Social Security video that waiting to claim is often the smart move. This is the mirror image.
Waiting doesn't help your IRA because the government starts that clock for you.
The good news is that every one of these mistakes is avoidable with a little warning. And now you have it.
If this helped clear the fog, subscribe and stay on the map, because this is the third stop in a series.
We've walked the Social Security mistakes, the Medicare mistakes, and now the RMD mistakes. The three big decisions the government hands every retiree. Next time, we turn it around and map the money moves retirees say they never regret.
This has been the Retirement Map. Remember, this is education, not advice. The rules and numbers change, and these are the 2026 figures.
For your own situation, sit down with a licensed tax professional. Take care of yourself, and take care of the people counting on you. I'll see you down the road.